A very good morning to all. In the last class, we learnt about soil erosion and we learnt about the natural causes of soil erosion. And today we are going to learn about soil conservation. The soil that we see around has formed millions of years ago, and we all know that the earth was fully covered with rocks, and you all know the formation of soil. Then you know the top layer of the soil. So the top layer of the soil, which is the fertile layer of soil, which is very precious. Why it is very precious? Because it is essential for the growth of plants. And it is our duty to conserve soil. So, prevention of soil erosion, we call it as soil conservation. Or you can say, the protection of soil against soil erosion, we call it as soil conservation. Now let's see in what all ways we can conserve soil. The steps to conserve soil. There are different ways to conserve soil, which are grow plants, afforestation and reforestation, terrace or step farming, building bunds, cover crops, shelter belts. And now we are going to learn about each of these ways one by one. Coming to the first one, grow plants. To prevent soil erosion, the first thing that we have to do is we have to grow plants. The barren land should be covered with plants. So you all know what is a barren land. A land where there are no trees. The barren land should be covered with trees. It should be covered with variety of plants. What happens when there is rich growth of plants? The rich growth of plants can prevent soil erosion. The roots of these plants tightly hold the soil particles and prevent the soil from being eroded. So growing plant is the best way for conserving. It is the best way for soil conservation. Coming to the next step, that is afforestation and reforestation. Another important way for soil conservation. So what is this afforestation? Afforestation means planting trees. Planting trees on barren land or hill slopes, that means steep land. And we can create or we can develop a forest area. So by planting trees on barren land or hill slopes, by which we can create or develop a forest area. So you all know what is a forest. Forest is an area of land full of trees. So afforestation means planting trees. Then what is reforestation? Reforestation means restore. Restore a forest which was damaged. How we can restore a forest? We can restore a forest by planting trees. By planting trees that grow naturally in the forest. So, it is a systematic attempt to revive a damaged forest region. So, what is the meaning of revive? Revive means restore. We can restore a damaged forest region. How we can restore? We can restore by planting trees. That is called reforestation. Coming to the next way to conserve soil is by step farming or terrace farming. In hilly region, you know how these farmers cultivate their crops? They cultivate their crops on hill slopes, that is the steep land. What happens when they clear this land for farming? So when there is heavy rainfall, the rainwater can easily flow downwards and it carry away the top layer of the soil. So you all know what happens. The top layer of the soil is washed away. The fertility of the soil gets lost. So that the land could not be suitable for growing crops. So what the farmers does in this hilly regions is, you can see in the picture, they convert these hills, they convert these slope of hills to steps. So these steps can reduce the force of water and prevent the soil from being eroded. So that is called step farming. So step farming have many advantages. The first one, as we discussed, it reduces the force of water and prevents the soil from being eroded. And the another thing is, when there is rainfall, the water gets deposited on each step. And what about the plants growing there? The plants growing there can easily absorb the water. So these are the advantages of step farming. So coming to the next way of soil conservation, that is building bunds. So do you know what happens to the river during rainy season? You can see the river gets fresh supply of water and even the river flows with a greater force. Then think about a farmland which is near to the river bank. When there is overflow of river, when there is overflow of water, what happens? This water easily wash away the topsoil from the farmland and it leads to soil erosion. So in order to prevent that, what the farmers does is they build bunds. They build bunds in order to prevent the soil from being eroded. So these bunds act as a barrier. So they act as a barrier and they prevent the overflowing of water to the land which is near to the river. So this is about building bunds. So building bunds is also a way to conserve soil, a way to prevent soil erosion. Coming to the next one, that is cover crops. So after each crop, what the farmers does is they keep the land barren. Barren means where there are no crops. They keep the land barren for some period of time. So do you know why they keep the land barren for some period of time? Because the soil has lost its fertility. So they keep the land barren for some period of time so that the soil can regain its fertility. Then again they will sow the crop. But what happens when a land is kept barren for some period of time? We know that the barren land gets exposed to water and wind and the topsoil will be easily washed away. So to prevent that, what the farmers does is they grow cover crops. The cover crops are grown for preventing soil erosion, not for harvesting. So for that, these farmers grow cover crops. So they grow cover crops such as some type of grass or pulses. And they grow cover crops until new crops are sown. And even these cover crops are used as cattle feed. So that is another way to conserve soil. Coming to the next one is about shelter belts. So in farmlands you can see it is open from all sides so that it can easily expose to wind and water. So what the farmers does here is on the edges of these farmland they grow trees, shrub and plants. So why do they grow? So in order to reduce the force of wind. So this is also another way to conserve soil. So this is called as shelter belts. And these plants protect these farmland, protects the soil from the strong wind. And this is called as shelter belts. So these are some of the ways in which soil can be conserved. These are some of the ways to prevent soil from being eroded. In page number 51, you can see there is a box given. Excess use of chemical fertilizers and insecticides reduce the fertility of the soil. When we use more of these fertilizers and insecticides, the fertility of the soil can be lost. So instead of that, what we can do is, we can use more of plants and animals manure. It keeps the fertility of the soil. We'll discuss about soil conservation, prevention of soil erosion. Prevention of soil erosion is called as soil conservation, and we learned different steps to conserve soil. So we'll meet in the next class. So till then, thank you.